The road was empty for miles, swallowed by the dark edges of the national park. My headlights cut through the mist, catching only glimpses of crooked pines and drifting fog. The silence in the car pressed against me, broken only by the hum of the engine and the faint rattle of loose gravel beneath my tires. It should have felt peaceful, but something about that silence was wrong. Like the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. Every mile marker I passed looked older, worn down, almost as if I'd been circling the same stretch of road again and again. The radio sputtered with static when I tried to turn it on, the faint whisper of voices slipping through between the cracks of sound. I slowed the car, watching pale shadows flicker across the fog just ahead. For a moment, I thought they were deer, maybe hikers caught in the wrong place after dark. But the shapes moved strangely, bending at angles that weren't right, their limbs too long, too sharp in the glow of my lights. My chest tightened. My hands gripped the wheel. I should have kept driving, but when one of them stepped onto the road and turned its face toward me, that's when I knew I never should have stopped. The road was empty. Late afternoon, the sun slipping behind the trees, shadows stretching long across the asphalt. The park was quiet, too quiet, as if it had been waiting. I noticed it first on the side of the road. A mile marker, pale, worn, and unlike any I had seen before. No numbers carved into it, just bare, smooth wood. I slowed, unsure why I was drawn to it. The air smelled faintly of wet earth, damp leaves pressing against the tires. When I reached out, my fingers brushed the surface. It was warm. A low hum vibrated through the wood, soft enough that I thought I might have imagined it. The road curved ahead, and I continued, but the marker returned. Again, on the same side, standing there as if nothing had moved, yet the distance between us had stretched impossibly. I passed it again, and again. I didn't turn around. I didn't retrace my path. Still, each time there was closer, waiting. The hum grew faintly louder. It was almost breathing, the heat radiating from the wood pressed against my palm, pulsing with a rhythm I couldn't match. I stopped the car. The forest leaned in, the wind rustling through the branches. I stepped out, boots crunching against gravel. The marker stood like a sentinel, unyielding. I circled it. The warmth clung to my skin. My breath fogged in the cool air, rising in soft clouds that disappeared quickly. The hum, I swear it whispered. A shadow moved behind the marker. I blinked. Nothing, only the woods, pale light filtering through skeletal branches. When I reached to touch it again, my fingers sank just a little. The wood felt alive. Faint ripples ran beneath the surface, like the skin of water disturbed by a slow, invisible wind. I stepped back. The forest seemed quieter now, but the air had weight. Something watched. I climbed back into the car. The engine roared to life, too loud in the stillness. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The road stretched endlessly behind me. Yet, I could still see the marker, closer than it had been moments ago. I drove, slowly at first. It appeared again, just beyond the next bend. I hadn't turned. I hadn't looped around. But it was there, always there. The sun dipped lower. Shadows swallowing the road. I tried not to think of what it meant. I tried not to listen to the hum still faintly vibrating through the car frame, through the tires, through my chest. It's impossible, I told myself. Yet my eyes betrayed me. The marker moved with me, keeping pace, standing perfectly upright, unwavering, as if it had always been there and always would be. I stopped again. The engine died with a sigh. I stepped out. The marker was warmer now, almost hot, pulsing gently. I reached out. My fingers touched it. It vibrated, soft at first, then insistent, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I jerked my hand away. The forest seemed to lean closer. The wind whispered through the leaves. The hum filled my ears, wrapping around me, soft but commanding. I didn't know how long I stood there. Time seemed suspended like the marker itself. Finally, I got back in the car. The engine started. I drove. The marker stayed. Ahead, behind, beside me. I didn't turn, yet I could never leave it behind. And I realized, as the road stretched endlessly before me, that it didn't matter where I went. It would wait. It would follow, warm, hum alive, and I would always see it again. The highway stretched ahead, swallowed in fog. Thick, white mist rolled over the asphalt like slow water. The headlights barely pierced it, scattering soft pale beams that vanished almost immediately. The air was damp, clinging to my skin. The scent of wet asphalt mixed with pine and something older. I drove slowly, letting the fog dictate my speed. Then I saw it. At first, just a shadow in the rearview mirror, a shape sitting silently in the back seat. I froze. My hands tightened on the wheel, but when I turned, the seat was empty, cold leather, smooth, unbroken. The fog pressed against the windows, blurring the world outside. A small patch of condensation drifted along the glass. It formed the faint outline of a face. I swallowed. The fog pressed in, heavy and suffocating. I blinked. It was gone. Only the soft hum of the tires on wet asphalt remained. I tried to shake it off. Perhaps my eyes were tired, the highway long and empty. I glanced back again. Nothing. The mirror reflected only the dark interior. But the feeling lingered. The sense that I wasn't alone. That something had slipped into the space beside me and melted into shadow. A soft breath? No. Just the mist curling along the glass. Yet it felt alive, aware, shifting in response to me. The shape returned. Faint, fleeting. A figure seated silently, shoulders hunched. It didn't move when I turned. Only when I looked forward again did the seat appear empty once more. I gripped the wheel tighter. The road seemed longer now, stretched by the fog, infinite. Every curve held the possibility of that silent presence returning. I tried to talk to myself. Quiet words, whispered. Nothing. The fog answered with silence. A pressure in my chest. The condensation on the windows thickened, clouding my view. Fingers of moisture traced patterns that looked almost human. Then eyes. Too faint, hollow dots staring back at me through the mist. I blinked. They vanished. The road seemed empty again, yet the air thrummed with something unseen. A soft tapping, like fingertips against glass. But when I looked, nothing. Only fog. Only shadows. Only the slow, heavy pulse of the tires against asphalt. I slowed to a crawl. The mist clung to the car like a living thing. I felt it in the small hairs on my arms, in the nape of my neck. The space behind me, it existed, and it did not. A shadow flickered across the rear view. I tried to focus. The outline was wrong. Too still. Too precise. I imagined it standing, reaching forward, breathing cold against my ear. I told myself it was nothing. Only fog. Only imagination. But imagination doesn't leave warm spots on the seat. It doesn't leave faint, wet trails on glass that disappear when you look directly at them. And it doesn't breathe. The figure grew closer in my mind, not in space, but in attention. I could feel its presence in the quiet, in the hum of the engine, in the mist curling over the dashboard. I stopped the car at the side of the road. The fog swallowed the world. Everything beyond the headlights was white, empty. I glanced back once more. The seat remained empty. But the window, a face pressed faintly into the condensation, features blurred, shifting, familiar and wrong. A smile, a shadow of one. I stepped out. The cold wrapped around me, heavy and wet. The mist clung to my clothes. My boots pressed into gravel that whispered underfoot. I turned in a slow circle. Nothing moved. No one. Just the fog, rolling alive. The car hummed softly beside me. The seat behind me was empty, but I still felt it. Watching. Waiting. I got back in. The engine started, loud in the stillness. I drove, slowly, carefully, through the fog, past the bending trees, through the endless whiteness. But in the rear-view mirror, a fleeting shadow lingered, always just out of reach. And I knew, whether it was real or imagined, it would not leave me alone. Night had fallen completely. The highway was empty now, slick with a thin sheen of rain. Pine trees leaned in from both sides, their dark shapes swaying gently in the wind. The car's headlights cut narrow paths through black, but everything beyond them was a wall of shadow. I drove slowly, every nerve taut. The air smelled damp, earthy, and faintly metallic. Every so often, the The tires hissed on wet asphalt, echoing too loudly in the stillness. Something moved across the road. At first, I thought it was a deer. Then, I realized it wasn't. It ran on all fours low to the ground. Its skin, it was loose, shifting, almost liquid, rippling with every movement. I slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched, mist rising in curls. It froze in the headlights. I could see it fully now. A creature, pale and long-limbed, staring directly at me. Its face flickered. For a second, it looked human, familiar. Then something warped it. A snarl, a stretch of skin, features wrong but somehow known. It twisted in the light, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The headlights held it still. The forest behind it was deep and silent, yet alive with subtle rustling, as if the trees themselves were watching. It stepped closer. The loose skin slid over its bones and soft, wet sounds I could almost hear. It didn't run. It didn't flee. It simply moved. Its eyes caught mine. Human, empty, searching. Then gone. The face shifted again. Something alien stared back. I swallowed, heart hammering. The car felt fragile, tiny against the weight of whatever it was. The forest pressed close, darkness spilling into beams of the headlights. I tried to move. The car shuddered as I accelerated, but when I glanced in the rear view, I caught a flash. It was following. Swift, silent, impossible. The air smelled hotter now, metallic like blood or fire. I could feel the skin crawling over my own arms, goose flesh rising, every hair alert. The creature ran alongside the car. Its form flickered, limbs bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. The shadows in the trees twisted, echoing its movements. I reached for the horn, but it felt wrong to break the silence. The only sounds were the tires on wet asphalt, the wind in the trees, the soft slapping of shifting skin. Then it leapt straight across the road and stood upright for a heartbeat. The light from the headlights hit it fully. Its face now mine, or at least a version of it. Wrong, stretched, smiling faintly. The forest behind it seemed to recoil, shadows bending away. I screamed softly, not out loud, but inside, in that quiet space where words become panic. The headlights wavered as I jerked the wheel. It crouched again, low to the ground, moving with impossible speed. The car's frame felt flimsy, fragile, like paper in a storm. I didn't look back, but I knew it was there, always there. Feet, limbs, skin, all bending, folding, shifting like it was testing the edges of reality. The air smelled of rain and something deeper, older, decaying just beneath the surface. I could hear the soft scrape of its movement on the asphalt behind me. Every turn of the wheel echoed in the darkness. Every heartbeat hammered, like a drum in the quiet night. I passed the place where I first saw it. The headlights lit the roadside briefly, but the forest seemed endless, deepening with shadows. Then silence. No sound of movement behind me. No rustling. No shifting skin. Just the hum of the engine. Steady, reassuring, but thin against the weight of what I had seen. I slowed. The highway stretched ahead, black and endless. I couldn't be sure it was gone. The memory of its flickering face pressed into my mind, like smoke curling through a room. The road was quiet now, too quiet. Every shadow seemed to twitch with unseen life. Every tree held its breath. I tried to tell myself it had disappeared. Maybe it had. Maybe it never existed outside the edges of light. But deep in my chest, I knew better. The skin, the shifting, the impossible face. It followed, always just beyond the headlights, always waiting. I drove faster. The tires hissed against wet asphalt. The shadows stretched and bent. The trees leaned in, watching. And I understood, some things on the road don't run away. They wait, they watch, they follow, always. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick and still. I spotted the rest stop ahead, its lights glowing faintly through the mist, a place meant for pause, for quiet breaks on long stretches of road. I pulled in, tires crunching against wet gravel. The asphalt was slick, reflecting the pale yellow glow of the lamps above. Everything felt ordinary at first. The vending machines hummed, low, constant, mechanical vibrations that pressed against my chest. I walked closer, expecting the usual cold drinks and snack bars. None worked. The glass fronts were fogged, streaked, but moving. Reflections shifted on their own. I caught glimpses of figures behind the glass. Faces I couldn't recognize, stretching and twisting as I blinked. I stepped back. The hum grew louder, vibrating through my shoes, my palms, the soles of my feet. The bathroom door swung open behind me. Slowly. No one was there. No wind. No footsteps. Nothing. Just a door, creaking on its hinges as if inviting me in. I stared at it. The lights inside flickered faintly. I didn't want to go closer, and yet I felt drawn. The air smelled faintly of cleaning supplies, but under it something sour, metallic, wet. A heartbeat in the quiet, a soft scuff of movement against the tiles. Though I was alone, I leaned against a vending machine, tracing the condensation on the glass. Reflections wavered again. Not mine, not fully. A shadow lingered behind. Fleeting, gone when I turned. The rest stop was smaller than I remembered from any other journey. The lights seemed warmer, closer, like the walls themselves were bending inward. The faint hum of the machines pressed against my temples. I heard it then. Soft footsteps. Slow, careful, circling, pausing, moving again. I turned sharply. Empty. The silence returned, almost sharper than the sound. I tried the machines again. Buttons pressed. Nothing. The glass shimmered faintly. Shadows flickering. I could have sworn one reflected a face I recognized, but it wasn't mine. A door slammed somewhere inside. Echoed once, then softened like it was far away. I couldn't tell if it came from the bathroom, the storage closet, or somewhere else entirely. I stepped back, trying to steady my breath. The air felt heavier. Every small noise was amplified. The drip of water from a leaky pipe, the hum beneath the floorboards, the soft scrape against concrete. I thought about leaving. I should leave, but the pull, the quiet insistence of the place, held me. A reflection shifted suddenly. In the glass, I saw myself, or I thought I did, except the shadow behind me lingered longer, stretching taller, crouching, twisting. I blinked. Gone. The hum reached a low, vibrating crescendo. It pressed into my chest, my ears, my teeth. I felt my own heartbeat trying to compete, fast and shallow. The bathroom door opened wider this time, slowly, as if testing. I could see the darkness inside, curling like smoke. I stepped back from the machines, my palms slick with sweat. The reflection in one of the glass fronts flickered again, movement that wasn't mine. Fingers brushing the inside of the glass, pausing, almost waving. A face appeared. Familiar. Wrong. I didn't wait. I turned toward my car. The gravel underfoot seemed sharper, louder, scraping beneath my boots as if something followed. The car was there, silent, waiting. The hum of the vending machines faded slowly as I approached. I looked back once. The rest stop was still, empty, but the feeling, it stayed. Soft footsteps behind me. The smell of wet metal. The hum vibrating faintly through the soles of my shoes. I got in the car. The engine roared to life, more violent than it should have been. I drove away slowly, not daring to glance back. The rest stop receded in the mist, lights blurring into pale orbs. Yet in my mind, I could still hear the hum, see the shifting reflections, feel the soft footsteps circling somewhere just beyond the edge of sight. And I knew, even as the road stretched ahead, that it wasn't empty. It never had been. Night had deepened. The highway stretched ahead, pale lines glowing faintly under the headlights. The air smelled of rain-soaked asphalt and pine. A soft mist curled around the tires. I reached for the radio. Static hissed through the speakers, low and persistent. I twisted the dial. Nothing. Only white noise, filling the car, wrapping around me like fog. Then voices. Soft at first, almost drowned in the static. Whispers curling through the hum of the engine, repeating my name. At first, I thought I imagined it, a trick of tired ears, of the long road. But the voices persisted, soft, distant, strange accents slipping through the static, calling me, each syllable curling in the darkness. I turned the dial. They disappeared. The static hummed. I exhaled slowly. Relief. And then, from the forest, faint at first, a whispering that matched the voices in the radio. Soft, indistinct, repeating my name. I tried to tell myself it was the wind, branches brushing the car, animals in the brush. But the rhythm, the cadence, it was deliberate, intentional. I reached the dial again. The voices returned, clearer this time, chanting, almost, repeating, layering, overlapping, calling me. My name, stretched and warped, echoed inside the car. The mist pressed against the windows. Each breath fogged the glass. I could see faint, swirling shapes outside, branches, or something else. The static grew louder as the voices bled through, soft at first, then insistent, like the forest itself was leaning in. I could feel it vibrating under my seat, through the pedals, into my chest. I turned the radio off. The sound vanished instantly. Relief? Brief and brittle. But the whispers didn't leave. From somewhere behind me, from the edge of the trees, they continued. Soft, almost imperceptible. Repeating. My name. I swallowed. The hairs on my arms rose. The mist outside thickened. Branches scraped the side of the car, gentle, deliberate. I tried to focus on the road. The headlights cut narrow paths into the fog. But every shadow seemed to twitch, to sway toward the edges of vision. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. Empty road. Yet I felt it, watching, waiting. The faint echo of my name carried through the air, blending with the hum of tires and engine. I reached for the dial again, almost desperate. Static returned, but the voices had faded, slipping beneath the white noise. I switched it off. Silence. And yet, in the corners of my mind, they persisted. A lingering presence that didn't belong. I could hear it in the soft rustle of leaves, in the distant drip of water from the canopy, in the faint hum of the tires. The air smelled colder now, damp, metallic. I kept my hands tight on the wheel, knuckles white. Every curve of the road seemed longer. Every shadow stretched farther than it should. I forced my eyes forward. The radio remained dead, yet my name whispered in the forest, carried on a breath I couldn't see. I told myself I was imagining it, that I had imagined the voices and the static, the chanting, the repetition. But I knew better. The forest had learned my name, and it would not let me forget it. I drove faster. The trees bent closer. Branches scraped the roof, the hood, like fingernails tracing the car's surface. The mist thickened, curling into the headlights, soft, almost tactile. Every step of the road felt like a heartbeat in the dark, a rhythm that echoed the voices, now distant, now near, never gone. I could feel them following, not inside the car, not physically, but somewhere in the air, in the space between the tires and the fog, in the pulse of the night itself. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The whispers would follow me forever, calling, waiting, repeating my name in the quiet spaces I thought were safe. Even now, I can hear it, soft and patient, curling in the corners of memory. The night had grown colder. Fog clung to the river like a living thing, curling along the water's surface. I approached the wooden bridge slowly, headlights cutting pale beams into the mist. The boards groaned beneath the tires. Each step of the car echoed, hollow, stretching into the dark. The air smelled of wetwood, moss, and something older, something waiting. I noticed the claw marks first. Deep gouges carved into planks, fresh, raw. They ran along the surface like the jagged handwriting of something impatient. I slowed, gripping the wheel. The mist twisted around the bridge rails. It was quiet, almost too quiet. No wind, no water movement, only the low hum of the car. Then something moved beneath the bridge, a massive shape, shifting quickly, shaking the board with weight I couldn't measure. I stopped the car. The headlights spilled over the river, catching nothing. I leaned forward, straining to see. Two glowing eyes reflected back at me from the darkness below. They were small at first, then larger, moving closer, brighter. A low rasping sound rose from the shadows, wet, labored, and alive. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. The bridge trembled under the weight of something immense. The claw marks weren't random. They were a warning. I tried to drive forward. The tires groaned, the boards protesting under the pressure. The shape moved with unnatural speed beneath me. The eyes followed. I looked over the edge. The river was black, impossible to see through. Yet the eyes remained, glowing with intent. They followed every movement of the car, unblinking, patient. A low vibration traveled up through the tires, through the floor, into my chest. It wasn't just weight. It was awareness. Watching. Waiting. The car's lights illuminated a long, twisted form beneath the bridge. Pale, slick, and trembling. It moved with limbs that bent in ways they shouldn't, scratching the planks as if testing the bridge's strength. I wanted to leave. I had to leave. But something compelled me to watch. The eyes followed me, glowing, unrelenting, aware. The creature beneath the bridge shifted, rising slightly, body coiling like a spring. Its shadow stretched across the water, tall and impossible. I pressed the accelerator. The tires screeched against the old boards. The bridge quivered under the motion, as if warning me. Then it leapt, not onto the car, but across the span of darkness beneath, a blur of shifting limbs and pale skin. The eyes remained fixed on me. The rasping breath carried upward, through the planks, into the air around me. I felt the weight of it all at once. The forest beyond the river seemed to lean closer, watching. The bridge's boards trembled, responding to each movement of the thing below. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The river flowed silently behind me, but the glow of the eyes lingered, reflected faintly in the mirror, suspended in the darkness. Every instinct told me to move faster. The creature didn't pursue in a conventional sense. It simply waited, patient, letting me feel the terror of being observed, measured. The bridge stretched behind me, each plank groaning. I could hear soft scratches, faint as fingernails against wood. The claws had left marks that seemed to thrum beneath the tires. An echo of intent. I forced my eyes forward. The road beyond the bridge disappeared into fog. But the memory of those eyes burned in my mind. The shape beneath the bridge, coiled, waiting, alive in ways that defied sense. I drove faster. The tires hissed on wet asphalt as the bridge disappeared behind me. The air grew colder, mist curling into the headlights. But the weight of what I had seen pressed down on my chest. I couldn't shake it. The creature had not followed. It had waited, glowing eyes tracking, breathing, calculating. Even now I can feel it. The echo of claws on wood, the vibration of something immense beneath fragile planks, the knowing gaze of eyes that never blink. The road stretched ahead, endless in the fog. The river disappeared behind me, silent and still. But the bridge, the claw marks, the glowing eyes, they remained in my mind, waiting. The highway was empty again. Night had settled fully, thick and quiet. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and slow, wrapping around the edges of the road. The tires hissed softly on wet pavement. I saw him then, a figure, pale and small in the distance, waving for help. At first, I thought someone had stopped, stranded. The reflex to slow and stop surged through me. But as I passed, the figure seemed wrong. The wave was slow, deliberate, not quite natural. I didn't stop. My stomach tightened. Something in the movement didn't belong. A few minutes later, the same figure. Further up the road. Closer. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. It shouldn't have been possible. I drove faster. The road narrowed in the headlights. The figure appeared again, closer than before, waiting silently. The fog thickened. Soft, curling mist that pressed against the car, curling over the hood and spilling along the tires. The figure didn't move. It only waited. I slowed, thinking I might have imagined it. But no, there it was, its hand raised, waving again. I passed it once more. Every time I looked back, the figure lingered in the same stretch of road behind me. The headlights illuminated a pale, faceless shadow, small and still. It didn't step off the shoulder. It didn't vanish. It simply existed. I gripped the wheel tighter. The fog pressed against the windshield, curling into shapes that seemed alive. Branches scraped faintly along the roof. Something whispered through the trees. The figure appeared again, closer than before, waiting at the edge of the road, almost within reach of my headlights. Its movement was slow, calculated, patient. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of light, a trick of the fog, that my mind was tired. But my pulse betrayed me. Every instinct screamed. The shadow did not speak. It did not move erratically. It only waited, watching, waving, following in some impossible way. I drove faster. The tires hissed on wet asphalt. The fog thickened, curling along the edges of the headlights, swallowing everything beyond a few feet. And yet the figure persisted. Closer, its pale form stretched, shadowy, just at the edge of perception. Every turn, every bend, it appeared again, like the road itself was bending to place it there. I exhaled short and tense. The tires hissed again. My heart thumped against the cage of my chest. The mist pressed in, cold and damp, clinging to my skin. I slowed slightly, wondering if I should confront it. Curiosity gnawed at me, but the road whispered warning. Branches scraped. Gravel whispered under the tires. The shadow remained. It appeared once more, just at the edge of the headlights, closer than ever, waiting silently, its movement deliberate, impossible. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I drove on, eyes forward, shoulders tight. The shadow stayed at the edge of vision, patient, unblinking. The road stretched on, narrow, wet, and endless in the fog. Every time I dared glance back, it was there, waiting, waving, following. I understood then. It didn't need to chase. It didn't need to speak. It only existed on the road, bending space and time to make sure I could never leave it behind. The mist curled tighter. The headlights barely pierced it. Every shadow seemed alive, stretching toward me. The figure remained. I drove faster. The tires hissed. The mist pressed in. Branches scraped along the hood, along the roof, and the shadow waited closer than ever, just at the edge of sight. The air grew colder. The silence of the night pressed against my chest. And I knew I would see it again. On the next bend, the next stretch of road. It would wait. Always. The road curved gently, lined with pines that pressed close. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and cold, clinging to the edges of the tires. I slowed as I noticed the turnout ahead. There it was, a cabin, not on any map I had seen. Lights glowed warmly inside, a stark contrast to the gray mist and dark trees around it. I stopped the car at the edge of the gravel. The air smelled of damp wood and smoke, faintly sweet, faintly bitter. The mist curled around the tires, soft and deliberate. The windows were strange, covered with animal hides, stitched roughly, shadows pressing against them. The warm glow inside seemed trapped, pulsing softly behind the thick coverings. I stepped out. The gravel whispered beneath my boots. Every rustle of leaves, every soft breeze, sounded magnified in the silence. I walked toward the cabin, drawn by the glow, the warmth, the impossible quiet. The door creaked as I reached it. It opened slowly. No one moved it. No wind. No sound from inside. The air inside smelled of wood smoke and earth. Something older. The floorboards groaned under my weight. The glow from the windows stretched across the room in pale strips of light. I tried the walls. The hides pressed soft against my fingertips, rough in patches. Movement flickered in the corners of my eyes. Shadows that didn't belong, stretching longer, thinner, reaching. The silence pressed in, soft, almost gentle, and yet it felt alive, watching, breathing. I stepped closer to one window. The glow pulsed faintly. The shadows behind the hides shifted. Not entirely human. Not entirely anything I could name. A soft creak echoed behind me. I turned. The doorway was empty. No figure. No wind. But the floorboards still whispered under something unseen. The air pressed closer, damp and cold. The glow in the windows pulsed again, as if reacting to me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to step back to the safety of the mist and the road. But my feet remained rooted, drawn, curious. I moved to the center of the room. Shadows shifted. The glow stretched and bent, reaching toward the corners, curling along the walls. I realized the cabin wasn't empty. It had waited for me. The warmth, the glow, the soft presence pressing against the edges of the air. All of it had been patient, waiting. I stepped back. The door creaked. closed by itself. Soft, deliberate. The cabin felt smaller now, the walls pressing in, the shadows stretching longer, thinner, folding toward me. The warmth was still there, but it felt wrong. I turned to leave. The door resisted. The glow pulsed, almost laughing softly, wrapping around the edges of the room. I pushed, shoving against the cold wood, finally sliding it open. The mist was waiting outside. I stepped out. The gravel whispered beneath my boots. The forest pressed close. I looked back. The cabin sat quietly, the windows dark once more, the glow gone, the warmth vanished. And yet, I knew it would return, or I would return. Some part of me had stayed inside, pressed against the shadows, drawn by the warmth and the waiting. The road stretched ahead, wet and pale under the headlights. Branches scraped gently, softly, like fingers tracing the hood. The mist curled close, pressing around me. I drove away slowly, glancing in the rearview mirror. The cabin disappeared in the fog, but the feeling remained. A weight, a presence, a soft, patient watching. Even now I can feel it, waiting, patient, alive in the edges of the night. The road curved through the park, lined with tall pines that whispered in the night. Mist curled along the asphalt, clinging to the edges of the tires. The air smelled damp, earthy, and faintly of something older. I saw them then, pale shapes moving in the shadows. Wolves, or something like wolves, white as moonlight, gliding silently along the edge of the road. Their eyes reflected in the headlights, too bright, too knowing. I slowed. The tires hissed softly on wet asphalt. Branches scraped gently against the car, but no wind moved them. They followed, pacing me exactly, step for step, perfectly aligned with the speed of the car. I tried to shake them, turn off the road, speed up. They remained, gliding silently beside the wheels. The air smelled colder now, a faint metallic tang beneath the wet pine scent. The mist curled higher, weaving between the trees and the wolves, soft and deliberate. I noticed something strange. For a heartbeat, they stood upright, human height, almost, just for a moment, and then back to all fours, slinking beside the car like nothing had happened. I swallowed. The hum of the tires felt loud now, echoing in the quiet night. I could feel the weight of their eyes, reflecting in the headlights, following every small movement. I dared a glance in the rearview mirror. Shadows swirled, stretching into impossible shapes, the pale figures moving fluidly, keeping pace. A soft rustle from the forest made me turn. Branches bent, twigs snapping softly under invisible weight. The wolves didn't run. They lingered at the edge of the trees, watching, waiting. The road narrowed. The headlights illuminated twisted trunks, pale shapes weaving between them. I could see glimpses of her glistening, bodies bending in ways that weren't natural. The upright moment returned. One of them rose fully, for just a second, human shoulders, long arms, pale face reflecting the headlights. Then back to wolf. Silence, except for the hiss of the tires. I realized my pulse was echoing, loud in my ears. Every instinct screamed to drive faster, but the wolves mirrored me, perfectly pacing, watching. Branches brushed against the car, though no wind moved them. A soft growl, distant, impossible to place. The air smelled metallic now, closer to iron, closer to blood. I blinked. The wolves shifted again, eyes reflecting in the beams. Pale, unblinking, knowing. I tried not to panic, but the upright moments, the fleeting glimpses of something not quite animal, pressing on me. I felt like a prey being measured, counted, studied. A shadow moved closer on the side of the road, closer than the rest. Its movements jerky now, unnatural, limbs bending wrong. I slammed on the brakes. The tires hissed, mist curling over the hood. The wolves paused. For a heartbeat, they watched me, then fell back, pacing beside the car, but just at the edge of the light. The road stretched ahead, twisting, wet and narrow. The wolves followed, not running, not chasing, just present. The forest seemed alive now. Branches swayed without wind. The mist pressed closer, curling inside the car, wrapping around the steering wheel, around my hands. I dared to glance behind. The pale shapes in the distance, stretching, twisting, always upright for a moment, and then fading back to wolf. I understood then. They weren't just animals. They were watchers, shadows that shifted between forms, measuring, learning, waiting. I drove faster. The tires hissed. Branches scraped. Mist pressed close. And yet the wolves kept pace, gliding alongside, following my every move. The forest leaned in, eyes unblinking, bodies bending impossibly. A faint metallic tang thickened in the air. I didn't dare stop. The wolves didn't chase, but they didn't need to. I could feel them in the space around the car, in the edges of the headlights, in the pulse of the night itself. Even now, I remember the upright moment, the pale, watching faces, the impossible, twitching bodies, the weight of eyes that knew too much. And I know they are still there, waiting in the park, watching. Always, the road narrowed as I drove deeper into park. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and thick, pressing against the tires. The trees leaned close, their branches scraping faintly against the hood. I saw him first at the edge of the road. A ranger, standing tall, waving me down, uniform crisp in the dim light, hat low over his brow. The gesture was calm, almost welcoming. I slowed. The tires hissed softly. The forest pressed close, silent, expectant. As the headlights reached him, I noticed it. His face, smooth, blank, no eyes, no mouth, no features to speak of, just skin stretched tight, reflecting the faint glow of the headlights. I blinked. It shouldn't have been possible. I should have stopped. But curiosity held me there, suspended between instinct and disbelief that he waved again. Slowly, deliberately, the road around him twisted slightly in my perception, trees bending, fog curling unnaturally. I tried to rationalize it. Perhaps the fog played tricks on the light. Perhaps it was a reflection. But he remained, silent, blank, waiting. I passed him. The tires hissed over the wet asphalt. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. He was there, closer than before. His faceless head tilted slightly, observing. I swallowed. The air smelled of damp earth and cold pine. Mist pressed against the windows, curling into the interior of the car. Every rustle of leaves sounded amplified. I drove faster. The ranger did not move off the road. He did not step aside. He simply appeared in the mirror, again and again, unblinking, patient. Branches scraped faintly against the roof. The tires hissed against wet asphalt. And still he followed. Each time I glanced behind, his blank face loomed. Closer, patient, watching. I couldn't understand how it was possible. The road stretched endlessly. Every turn, every curve seemed to bring him nearer. The forest leaned closer. Mist swirled between the trees, curling into the headlights, soft and deliberate. I tried to rationalize. Perhaps he was a trick of the fog, a hallucination born of exhaustion. But the feeling pressing in my chest, it told me otherwise. He didn't chase. He didn't move like anything alive I had ever seen. He simply existed, a presence that followed, patient, inevitable. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my hands. The air smelled colder now, metallic, faintly of wet stone. Every shadow at the edge of the headlights seemed to twitch, bending closer, stretching toward the car. I glanced forward, but the road seemed longer than it should be. Curves stretched unnaturally. Branches reached closer to the windows, scraping gently, whispering against the metal. And then I realized it wasn't just behind me. It was in the mirror, in the space around the car, in the mist curling along the road. Everywhere I looked, that blank, faceless ranger existed. I wanted to stop. I wanted to turn. I wanted to see him clearly, to understand, but fear anchored me, kept me moving forward. The tires hissed over the asphalt. Mist pressed closer, curling around the mirrors, wrapping over the hood. And still he appeared, patient, waiting, unblinking. Every instinct screamed to leave. But the curiosity that had made me slow in the first place, that same curiosity kept me driving. The forest leaned in, silent but alive. Branches whispered softly. Mist pressed cold against the skin of my hands. And in the rear view, the ranger waited. Always, the road split. for different directions, each veering off into shadowed trees. I checked the map. Nothing. The forest stretched endlessly. I chose the left turn. Minutes passed. The trees were different. But soon the road looped back. The same crossroad. Exactly. I tried the next turn. Again, the same result. The fog thickened. Branches leaned closer, scraping softly, whispering along the roof. I drove slowly, heart tight. Every turn brought me back to the same place. Only the trees around me changed, ever so slightly, subtly, yet the road remained unchanged. The air smelled damp, earthy, faintly metallic. Every instinct told me to stop, to choose a path and stay. But the crossroads, it didn't allow that. Time stretched. Minutes became hours. The fog pressed in, curling along the asphalt, soft and deliberate. I stepped on the brakes at one loop. Silence. The forest seemed to inhale around me. No rustling, no wind, no guidance. Every direction looked the same. I could feel the pulse of the earth beneath the tires. Slow, patient, watching. I stopped completely. The car hummed softly. I tried to breathe. The fog pressed against the glass. And then nothing. No whispers. No rustling. No footsteps. Only the weight of endless choice. The crossroads stretched forever, but I could not move forward. A truck sat abandoned on the roadside, doors wide open, metal rusting, tires flat. I slowed. The air smelled sharp, acrid, like burned rubber and rust. A chill pressed through the car, curling along the steering wheel. I stepped out. The gravel whispered beneath my boots. Inside, every seat was shredded. Claw marks gouged deep into the upholstery. The dashboard held a CB radio. I leaned closer. Static crackled. Then a whisper. "Leave now." I jumped back, heart hammering. The voice was soft, urgent, unhuman. The radio fell silent as I stumbled back. The truck seemed to breathe. Every creak of metal sounded deliberate. Every shadow inside twisted, stretching along the floorboards. I stepped forward, compelled. A claw mark on the doorframe drew my eye. Long, deep, curved, waiting. I tried the seats again. Empty, except for the shredded fabric. A faint scent of iron lingered. Wet, metallic, sharp. The CB crackled again. A whisper I couldn't identify. Closer this time, curling around my ear. I jumped back, heart racing. The truck's shadow seemed to shift, limbs bending where none should exist. I didn't wait. I got back in the car. The engine roared to life, louder than it should have. I drove away. The truck sat in silence. But the claw marks, the shredded seats, the whispers, they followed me, lingering in the mist along the roadside. I passed under the overpass. The night was still. Mist curled along the highway, thick and slow. Then I saw it, a shape crouched atop the bridge, limbs too long, shadows stretching unnaturally. I blinked. It dropped, silent, impossible, landing on the asphalt behind me. I jerked the wheel, heart hammering. The headlights illuminated a figure, moving impossibly fast. Limbs bending wrong, skin pale, glistening. The sound of its sprint was wet, rasping, impossible to track. I pressed the accelerator. Tires hissed. Branches scraped the roof. The thing followed. I glanced back. A blur. Eyes glinting. Watching. Every instinct screamed to drive faster. The mist thickened. The highway stretched endlessly. Yet it gained on me, faster than any creature should. I swerved, trying to shake it. The asphalt hissed beneath the tires. The headlights caught its face for a heartbeat. Familiar, wrong, stretching in ways that shouldn't exist. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The highway bent around the mist. The creature chased, patient, relentless, impossible. Every sound was amplified. The hiss of tires, the rasping of limbs, the soft, impossible thud of something bounding behind me. I drove faster. The overpass disappeared, but I knew it was still there, waiting, following. A single lantern burned along the guardrail. Pale, flickering light. Soft warmth in the cool night. I stopped. The air smelled damp, cold, faintly of wet stone. Mist curled around the asphalt. soft and slow. The flame danced violently as I watched, almost as if reacting to something unseen. Soft footsteps, crunching gravel. I turned. Nothing. The lantern flickered again. Shadows stretched along the guardrail, long, thin, impossible. I leaned closer. The warmth didn't reach me. The air around the lantern pressed cold and damp. Footsteps again. Soft, patient, every step measured. Closer. I wanted to leave. I wanted to drive away. But curiosity held me, frozen in place, watching. The flame flared. The air hummed faintly. A rustling in the trees. Something unseen pressed close. Just beyond the light, I exhaled slowly. The lantern flickered. The footsteps faded, but the presence remained. I stepped back. The car waited. The mist curled around me, and I drove on. Even now, I can feel it. Patient, waiting, watching. The forest hummed softly. Mist clung to the trees, curling around the branches. A voice called from the dark. It sounded like my sister. Soft, familiar, curling through the fog. I froze. The voice grew closer, perfectly mimicking the one I trusted, the one I loved. It whispered my name, soft, coaxing. I stepped forward. Branches scraped my arms. Leaves rustled faintly, deliberately. The voice became a figure. In the fog, my sister's form appeared. Limbs bent wrong. Face stretched, features warped. I recoiled. The voice, still perfect. Calling, coaxing, laughing softly. Curling into the night. The fog thickened. The mist pressed close to my face. Every step forward was a struggle. Every breath smelled damp and metallic. The figure shifted closer. Limbs twisting, unnatural. Face flickering between familiar and wrong. Eyes empty yet aware. I stepped back. The voice continued, soft, coaxing. A chorus of whispers now, layered, echoing through the mist. I stumbled. The forest seemed alive, bending, pressing. The fog swallowed the ground beneath my feet. The figure tilted its head, stretching impossibly toward me. The voice, my sister's voice, coiled around my chest. Soft, patient, wrong. I ran, mist curling around me, branches snapping softly behind. The figure did not chase. It did not need to. It lingered in the fog, waiting. Even now I can hear it, softly calling. Perfectly familiar, and completely wrong. The mountains rose ahead, dark and silent. A tunnel carved into the rock yawn before me, black and endless. Mist lingered at the entrance, curling into the headlights. I drove in slowly. The tires hissed on the cold asphalt. The walls pressed close, rough stone glinting faintly in the headlights. Minutes passed, then hours. No exit. The road stretched on uninterrupted. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. The car felt heavier, trapped in the silence. Every bump echoed endlessly, bouncing off the tunnel walls. The air smelled of damp stone, faintly of rust, faintly of decay. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. Something moved along the ceiling. A shape crawling, limbs bending in ways they shouldn't. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. The shape moved closer, twisting, sliding along the rock. I could feel the weight of its presence pressing down, crawling along the roof, over the seats, into the air around me. The headlights barely pierced the darkness ahead. Shadows stretched impossibly long. The echo of tires, the hum of the engine, every vibration magnified. I wanted to turn back, but the tunnel seemed endless. Every curve led only deeper into darkness. The shape shifted again in the mirror, limbs bending, reaching, testing the space between ceiling and car. I swallowed, gripping the wheel tighter. The air grew colder, metallic, wet, pressing close. Every breath fogged the windshield. Every heartbeat echoed too loudly. I tried to focus on the road ahead. The tunnel swallowed it, stretched it, endless. And then I realized the shape was patient. It didn't chase. It simply existed above me, waiting. I drove faster. The tires hissed. The shape followed. Always. I stumbled upon the ranger campsite, just as night fell. Lanterns hung from poles. Sleeping bags spread neatly. Food stacked on tables. Everything looked untouched. Calm. I stepped closer. The air smelled of pine and faint smoke. Something pressed beneath it, metallic, sharp, wrong. I inspected the sleeping bags. Each one was ripped open. Empty. No gear. No warmth. Just hollow fabric and silence. Lanterns flickered as I moved. The shadows stretched along the ground, twisting between trees. Branches scraped softly along the roof of my car. At night, I heard it. The slow sound of zippers opening. 1, 2, around me, pausing, closing, opening again. I froze. The sleeping bags rustled, though no one moved them. The air grew colder, damp, heavy with quiet patience. I tried to leave. The tires hissed over gravel, but the campsite stretched endlessly, refusing to release me. Every turn of the road brought me past the same lanterns, the same hollow bags. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Shadows pressed at the edge of the forest. Eyes that shouldn't exist reflected faintly, flickering in the darkness. The rustling continued, soft, deliberate, circling. No wind moved the trees. No sound came from anything alive. I exhaled, short and tense. The campsite waited, watching, patient. I didn't stop. The tires hissed as I drove past. The lanterns flickered behind me, soft light bending impossibly. The sound of zippers echoed in the air. Even now I feel it, around me, in the edges of memory, waiting. The hills rose silently around the road. Mist curled along the treetops, low and cold. Then it came, a scream, high-pitched, inhuman, echoing. The air seemed to vibrate with it. I pressed the accelerator. The scream shifted suddenly. It became the voice of a child, repeating the same phrase over and over. I'm lost. I'm lost. I'm lost. Branches scraped against the hood. Mist clung to the windshield, cold and damp. I slowed. The hills seemed alive now. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It echoed between the trees, curling along the road. The scream became sharper, desperate. Every instinct told me to leave. But my feet stayed, rooted in the wet asphalt. I saw shapes in the mist, dark, fleeting, moving with intent, watching. The child's voice grew louder, closer, twisting in ways that shouldn't unnatural. I pressed the accelerator. Branches whipped against the car. The hills whispered in the night, bending, alive. The scream followed, high, desperate, repeating endlessly. I'm lost. I'm lost. The mist pressed closer. The shapes lingered at the edge of the headlights. Patient, waiting. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The voice, the hills, the shapes, they were everywhere. A wooden sign split in half leaned at the edge of the road. Claw marks carved deep into its surface. The letters pointed toward a trail that didn't exist on any map. I slowed. The air smelled damp, metallic, faintly of rot. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and deliberate. I reached out to touch the sign. The wood was warm, alive almost. A faint vibration ran along my fingertips. At night, the sign glowed faintly. The letters seemed to stretch toward the forest, inviting, coaxing. I thought about following. Curiosity pressed in. The forest leaned closer, mist curling between the trees, pressing cold and damp against my skin. I stopped myself, but the pull, the glow lingered. Every step I considered toward the trail brought unease curling up my spine. Branches whispered. Leaves rustled softly. The forest seemed to bend around the signpost. I turned the car and drove away. The sign glowed faintly in the fog behind me, pointing, waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that the path would follow me. Even now, I regret looking at it. The pull, the weight, the claw marks linger in my mind. I stopped at a rest stop. The air cold and damp. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and slow. The building was empty, lights flickering faintly. I stepped into the bathroom. The mirror reflected my face, pale in the dim light. But then my reflection lagged, a moment behind. I blinked. It stayed. It started moving on its own, faintly smiling, stretching, tilting its head, while my real face remained still. The hum of the fluorescent light pressed against my ears. The air smelled damp, metallic, sharp. I reached out. The reflection didn't mirror me. It lingered, watching. Soft footsteps echoed behind me. I spun. Empty. The mirror shifted again. The smile stretched wider, eyes gleaming faintly in the dim light. I backed away slowly. The air pressed cold against my skin. Every movement seemed amplified. Every shadow stretched impossibly. I didn't wait. I fled to the car. The tires hissed on wet asphalt. Even now I can feel it. The mirror, the smile, watching, patient. I spotted it at the edge of the road. A pale, twitching body lying in the ditch. Mist curled along the asphalt, soft and damp. I slowed. The air smelled metallic, wet, faintly of earth. The shape moved, slowly. Its arms bent backward, unnatural, limbs twisting in ways that made my stomach turn. I swallowed. It rose on all fours, slick, pale, twitching, glistening in the headlights. The eyes, hollow, patient, unblinking. I pressed the accelerator. The tires hissed over asphalt. Branches scraped the roof. It scurried into the woods. Impossible speed, limbs bending wrong, scraping leaves and soil. The sound followed me, wet, rasping, heavy breathing that pressed close to the car. I glanced back. Shadows pressed at the edge of the headlights. Eyes reflected faintly in the dark. Every instinct screamed to leave. The forest seemed alive, twisting, waiting. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Even now, I can feel the rasping, the creature moving just beyond the edge of vision. Always patient, always waiting. Low on fuel, I saw it. A gas station glowing softly in the fog. The mist pressed around the tires. I pulled in. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and dust. The aisles were empty, shelves lined with dust. No products, no warmth. The clerk at the counter didn't blink, eyes fixed, unyielding. The skin pale, too smooth. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me. Locked. The lights flickered softly. Shadows stretched impossibly along the aisles. I tried to speak. No sound came. The clerk remained still, watching. Every instinct screamed. I backed toward the door. It remained locked. The glow outside seemed farther than it should be, mist curling impossibly thick. I turned. The clerk was closer now, silent, waiting. The smell of dust and gasoline pressed close. Shadows twisted around the shelves, stretching along the floor. I didn't wait. I found a window, shoved it open, and scrambled out. The tires hissed as I drove back into fog. The station remained, glowing softly, watching. In the distance, a figure moved, jerking, twitching like a puppet with broken strings. I slowed. The mist pressed along the asphalt, curling around the tires. The closer I looked, the more familiar it became. A face stolen. Human, twisting in impossible ways. It stopped mid-step, turned slowly toward me. The air grew cold. Branches scraped the hood. Mist curled around my arms. Its movements were deliberate now, measured, patient, a dance that felt alive, yet wrong. I tried to blink it away. The headlights revealed a pale, shifting form. Every step stretched the limbs impossibly. The stolen face, smiling faintly, mocking. I pressed the accelerator. Tires hissed. The dance continued in the fog. Just ahead, watching, waiting. The road stretched endlessly. Mist curled between the trees. I didn't look back. Even now, I can feel the dance. Patient, wrong, waiting at the edge of the fog. No matter how far I drove, the road stretched endlessly. Twisted pines lined the asphalt, identical in shape, bending in the fog. My GPS showed no progress. Hours passed. Pale figures ran alongside the car, step for step, matching my speed, eyes reflecting faintly in the headlights. I slowed. Branches scraped the roof. Mist pressed against the tires. The forest leaned in. Every tree twisted impossibly. Shadows pressed close, curling around the car. The figures, they didn't speak. They didn't chase. They simply existed. Patient, waiting. I tried to shake them. Every turn led me back to the same stretch of road. The forest bent around me. The air smelled damp, metallic, heavy. Every instinct screamed to stop, to leave, to escape. But the road stretched on, endless, twisting, Alone. I pressed the accelerator. The pale figures mirrored me. Step for step, the mist pressed closer, branches scraping softly. Even now, I can feel them. Running, waiting, always alongside. At the final mile marker, he waited. A ranger, uniform crisp, hat low. The mist curled around his boots. Pale light bending along his shoulders. I slowed. The air smelled damp, earthy, metallic. This one had a face. Eyes hollow, glowing faintly. Skin pale, smooth, almost fragile. He leaned toward the car. Softly, his voice rasped, almost intimate. You were never supposed to leave. I exhaled slowly. The forest pressed close. Mist curling along the tires, along the roof, soft and deliberate. I wanted to turn, to drive away, but the road stretched endlessly. Branches pressed against the hood. The air hummed faintly. I understood. The park had always owned me. Every shadow, every whisper, every faceless figure, a part of it had followed me all along. I couldn't leave. No matter how far, how fast, the mile markers, the crossroads, the endless road, all led back. I watched the ranger's hollow eyes, glowing faintly in the mist. Patient, waiting. I accepted it. The tires hissed as I drove. The forest leaned closer, curling around the car, soft and slow. Even now, I can feel the presence. Every shadow, every whisper, every hollow gaze. I am part of the park now. Endless, patient, alone,